Okay, so here I'm just curious if you scored between a 70 and an 86, which would make you an extreme morning type, or between a 16 and a 30, which would make you an extreme evening type. When I do this in big groups, we always get a few, and usually, depending on the industry, we get morning types more often than evening types, but that's because most societies, whether it's North or South America, sometimes in the south of Europe, you see a little more variation, but certainly in Asia and in Europe, you find in the corporate world more extreme morning types, which is unusual because chronotype is pretty normally distributed. So if you're out on the extremes, that's a lot less common than being an intermediate type or maybe just a moderate evening or a moderate morning type. That's far more common. Most people seem to actually be this intermediate type somewhere in the middle. So let me unpack this for you a little bit. So first of all, I think it's very interesting that in the corporate world, again, across cultures, we're really selecting for morning types. And that's a problem when you have a variable that's normally distributed, because it means we're cutting out the talent of a portion of that distribution, and that is the people who are going to do their best work in the evenings. I think we could be very creative around this and think about how do we change up the workday to allow the evening types who really do their best work in the evening to do work when they do it best. I mean, imagine how much traffic this would reduce. Imagine how much less crowded things would be. Imagine how much easier it would be if we could go to a bank where people worked in the evening, because some people are better at doing that. You can imagine we could structure our work climate and our social climate in a much friendlier way to really capture the best from everyone. The next thing I want you to know about chronotype is that it is pretty fixed. So there are two ways your chronotype can change, and one is developmental. As you age, it changes, and the other really is just about your genetic predisposition. So as you may know, most really little kids are morning types. If you've had your kid waking you up at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning before you're ready to get up and go, you know what I'm talking about. It's also true that people, as they get older, tend to drift to be a little bit more of a morning type. But when you're in your adult years, you're pretty set, and that is dictated now by your genetics. So if you're an extreme morning type, that is genetically determined. And if you're an extreme evening type, it's the same. Once you're in the intermediate evening and morning types, there's a genetic component, but it's a little less so. So just think about it this way. If you are an extreme morning type, you should not be doing your most important tasks in the evening, and probably not even in late afternoon. And vice versa. If you're an extreme evening type, it is really a bad idea to try to do your most important tasks in the morning. And by the way, I am one of those people. I think about it sometimes. I don't know if it's any accident that I self-selected not just into academia, which is incredibly flexible in terms of timing, but also into a sleep lab where I can work at night. That matches my chronobiology a lot better than trying to get up and be at work by 8 or 9 in the morning, where frankly, my brain wouldn't even be on for the first hour or two. So we need to accept that this is just natural human variation. And rather than forcing everybody to be the same, how great would it be if we could capture people's best by aligning their most important or challenging work with their circadian sweet spot? And that's the next thing I want you to understand, is that once you know your chronotype, and whether you're in the extreme or you're just moderate, even if you're in that intermediate or neither type, you may have an instinct that you still prefer the mornings or you prefer the afternoons or evenings a little more. Take that into account too, because again, these questionnaires are never perfect and they don't capture everything as well as maybe we'd like them to. So even if you're scoring, say, a 42 or a 44, ask yourself if you prefer to do your most important work in the evening or in the morning or somewhere in the middle of the day, and still take this advice. And that advice is to align your most important work with your circadian sweet spot. We all have aspects of our work that are just incredibly important, the thing that's the most important or is the most challenging, that's going to take the most brain power. Think about what those are, first and foremost. What are the things that are the most challenging or important, like the things you just can't get wrong and the things that you need to have some brain energy for? And once you have that, I want you to ask yourself, can you restructure your day even just a little bit so that you can prioritize those tasks to be aligned with your circadian rhythm? Because going back to the developmental piece, teenagers are wired to be nocturnal. So babies and little kids are morning types. Teenagers are overwhelmingly night types. And what that means, I'll use the United States as an example. We ask children, and they're still children, these teens, to go to school very early, especially if they have to get on a bus to get there. They show up there, for the most part, not really learning much at all through their first period, if not second subject at school. Then we load them up with sports and extracurriculars and homework, which they have to stay up late doing. It's also a primary goal for teenagers to be social. They have to learn that too. Then they're getting to bed late. And even if they go to bed earlier, even if they can go to sleep because they're so sleep deprived, the brain will not get high quality sleep at that age. Because again, teenagers really want to go to sleep around 11, maybe midnight, wake up around 8 or 9 at the earliest. So in the United States, there have been regions that have tried to change school start times. And those that have been successful, even if they change it by about 40 minutes, so instead of starting at 8 a.m., it starts at 8:40 in the morning, you typically see 3 things happen. Test scores go up, traffic accidents around the high school campus go down because kids here are driving, and behavioral problems go down. So it's a real low-hanging fruit to pick if we can figure out the structure, like the busing and things like that around it. And I'm going to say one more thing about teenagers. If they're sleeping in until noon, 1, 2, 3 on weekends, they're not doing that because they're lazy. They're doing that because they live in a world that's not set up for them and is not aligned with the way their brain works. And they need to be allowed that extra sleep so that they can dump some of the sleep debt that they're all under.